Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 309. Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Hey, thanks so much for visiting Buckwild Coffee. The best brew in the West, the best brew around the campfire, the best brew in the hunting shack, the best brew anywhere. Buckwild Coffee. Get yours today. D5. Heading out to Idaho and catching up with Steve Speck. Now, Steve Speck owns XO Mountain Gear. And what's so special about Steve? Well, he's helped people throughout the Midwest, throughout the West, get ready to go into the backcountry, DIY for archery. In fact, he helped Matt Gray out of Texas do exactly that, and Matt closed the deal on his first trip out west. That is not reality, folks, because it takes 3 to 4 years to really learn an area, to learn the elk. And it's no different than if you went to somebody's farm and never hunted before, nobody helped you before, and you had to figure it all out. Well, Steve Speck does that in spades. He talks about gear. He talks about what it takes to be a DIY hunter out west. And we're heading out to Boise, Idaho. If you've never been to Boise, Idaho, take a trip out there, folks, because it's one gorgeous town. And we're going to talk to Steve Speck. Now, Steve is the owner of XO Mountain Gear and S&S Archery. Hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on, Bruce.
Hey, I'm excited about it. I heard about your backpack hunting and DIY archery. And listeners, that's what we're going to talk about. That's what the show's going to be talking about. So just give us a couple of highlights on why you're in love with backcountry hunting.
I think it's just something growing up out west here. Just it kind of got into my blood. I didn't really get going too heavy on it till I was about 18. And I'm 33 now, just turned 33. And yeah, I think it's just backpacking and bow hunting. They're kind of, the things I lay awake at all night long or all year long, just dreaming of getting back up there in the hills and just the solitude and getting away from city life, is something that I definitely enjoy.
And then DIY archery, you told me in the warm-up you don't rifle hunt at all. So
correct.
What's so important about DIY archery to you?
Again, just the challenge of it, of just killing something with a bow and getting in there close and going out and doing this on your own. It's the reward at the end of the day is something that I personally love to do. It's just I love bow hunting and I love backpacking. The two go perfectly well hand in hand.
So, listeners, if you like backcountry hunting and DIY archery, this show's the next 30, 40 minutes are going to be full of adventures and stories and some technical stuff because XO Mountain Gear is on the cutting edge for backpacking gear. So, without further ado, Steve, let's just jump right into backcountry hunting and how that formulated into building XO Mountain Gear.
I think I'm co-owner of XO Mountain Gear. Lenny Nelson's my business partner, and we're first and foremost, buddies and hunting friends. We had just been, hunting together for a few years, and really I think both of us are pretty hyper analytical of our gear and equipment that we're taking with us. And one of the packs, our packs was one of our main kind of complaints. It's something we'd always sit around the fire or inside the little, 2-man tent talking about, all the things that we wanted to do in a backpack. And I had some experience with developing some products, and one day we just decided, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's try to make our own backpack.
And the bulk of my listeners are whitetail hunters, and
Hmm.
sometimes we're less than 100 yards from from our truck. And a quarter mile is a long way. Now, some people in some places you can get a mile or more into some deep woods, but in the agriculture areas, I mean, there's farm roads everywhere, so very few people use internal or external frames. Now, on your equipment, is it external or internal frames?
It's a little bit of a hybrid between the two, actually. That was kind of one of our goals was we needed to develop a pack that was extremely comfortable with your backpacking gear. So you got 30 to 40 pounds that you're carrying around with you all day long. At the same time, we had to have the capabilities of an external frame to haul. If you got an elk quarter and back straps and a head on there or something, you're going to have 120-pound loads. So we needed a pack that could kind of bridge those two gaps. And that's really where we developed it from.
So, like you said, it's a hybrid, and listeners, you know, basically everybody carries a day pack. I don't care what shape, size, whatever. And we got 20, 30 pounds even for whitetail hunting, because especially during the rut, all day sits. So,
Hmm.
would your equipment fit that 30, 40 pounds, or is it more or less a combo, like we said, a hybrid? So you're going to have the external frame for packing out an animal, but you can have the day pack capacity for sitting in a stand all day.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique system, and that it's a frame only, and that we have three different bags that attach to that frame, and they're all interchangeable. So you could buy the frame in our smallest 2,000 bag for day hunting, and then also our 5,500 bag if you're going on a week long backcountry trip, and you can swap them in and out. It does a really good job of packing tree stands and ladder stands because you can separate the bag from the frame, strap that stuff right to the frame, and then be just walking into the whitetail woods for you.
Hmm. That's interesting. And before, when you first said that, I said because a lot of guys have climbers and they have straps on them. They're
Hmm.
packed into themselves. But there's other, hang-ons that, yeah, they have some sort of straps. But if you had a external frame like you did, a pack frame, it would make it a lot easier. I would
Yeah,
think. I would
yeah,
think.
no, absolutely. Yeah, we don't sell the packs we sell back east are generally going to be guys coming out here for a hunt. But just last week, I had a guy order one up, and he was just specifically looking for a pack because he was one of the few guys that sounds like he can hike a mile plus into where he's set up his stand, and so he bought the pack just for that use.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, listeners, even though we're going to talk about the Western experience, because I know a lot of whitetail hunters email all the time, said, Bruce, what's it like to hunt the Rockies? What's it like to chase elk, big mule deer, cats, or sheep, or goats, or whatever, even moose, and so I every once in a while I like to have guys like you who enjoy backcountry hunting and do it DIY archery, because predominance of my listeners, they are archery hunters. Yeah, we get a lot of people that do rifle hunt, but most of the guys spend most of the fall archery hunting. So, with that being said, let's talk about backcountry hunting and the challenges that somebody coming from, I call them flatlanders, um, that you would face coming out to the Rockies and chasing a wapiti, or a king of the mountain mule deer.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely if you're going on your first trip out west, um, I would almost stay away from backpacking just because the logistics get even more complicated. I would find areas where you could just, if it was just your first trip, I would find places where there's maybe more roads and you can hunt, 1 to 3 miles away from a road and get into good elk because there's plenty of places you can do that. I mean, some of our hunting spots, I mean, we backpack into just more for the solitude aspect of it than necessarily have better hunting opportunities. Um, but if you did want to go on your first backpack trip, I would definitely recommend, you know, don't let it be your first backpacking trip and your first elk hunting trip at the same time. So find some areas at home where you can go backpack, and even if it's just go hike a mile away from the road and stay the night out there, and kind of you're just going to learn some stuff about your gear and equipment and getting it set up and what you need and don't need. So I definitely would encourage that. So you're not biting off too big of a bullet when you drive all the way, out to Colorado or wherever you're going to go for your elk hunt. And outside of that, yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of logistics to get that planned, of getting over there, picking the areas to hunt, what time of year you're going to go. Are you going to do an archery tag? Are you going to do a rifle tag? It's just kind of an endless thing that you got to go through. But it's not impossible by any means. And guys do it every year, and some of them are pretty successful coming out here and killing elk.
Yeah, Matt Gray, who was on the show, and that's how I got hold of
Yeah,
you. He planned it and got kind of beat up on the hike, but he did
yeah,
kill an elk. He did kill an elk, but he learned a lot of lessons. And
yeah.
and the thing I would say, I don't care where you live, but if you're going on a backpack hunt, especially your first one, one, you're going to carry way too much gear. Two, you really have to plan out your meals. That's the most important thing because water, you need a filter because water is the highest thing. And I know guys that say, "Oh, I'll just throw a couple of cans of beans," and they're carrying all that weight. And it gets ridiculous because 100 pounds is 100 pounds. So I would challenge anybody that's thinking about this: get your pack frame that you think is the best of the best, and put 100-pound bag of salt, potatoes. I don't care. Put 100 pounds in that, and then go walk 10 miles
Right. Yeah, that's not going to be easy.
in flatland.
Uh,
I'm talking flatland. You know,
yeah,
and then about a
yeah.
mile in it, you're gonna go. Are you kidding me? Then put elevation from 8 to 10,000 feet or more, and have a nice day. And I'm not being smart, folks, but I sort of kind of am because our expectations get crazy. Let's talk about those expectations that you've heard from
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, I think it's just you don't know what you're getting into, right? And some guys get planned and prepared for it, and other guys don't. I definitely think I would, physical fitness is a very, very important part of it. I think it gets a little overhyped, but you do need to be in dang good shape coming out here. And it's tough, but I sorry, I lost track here.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, you need to be in good shape, and it's going to be very important. You might be able to tough it out for day 2, day 3, but by day 4, if you're overweight and your lungs aren't kicking in, you're probably going to quit that hunt earlier than you should have. So I definitely suggest and getting in shape, and it's probably the number one mistake people make is overestimating or underestimating it and coming out here and not being ready for it physically. So, but outside of that, there's a million other things. Fitness is one important part, and having the right gear. And like you mentioned, it's way too easy for guys to overpack. And if you're overpacking, then your pack's heavy, and you're really just making the job worse on yourself. So, one saying we kind of use quite often is we are okay with being uncomfortable. So you don't need to have all these little nice oh crap. You don't need to have all these little comforts of home with you. We go pretty minimalist and really make it, just we're pretty uncomfortable out there, but we're having a great time.
and this is put 2 cents on it. Okay, if you're gonna go overnight, I don't know how many miles you're gonna go in, but you're gonna go overnight. One, you need a fire starter. You need shelter. You need a filter because don't drink the water just out of a stream unless you're in
Yeah,
Alaska or parts of New Zealand, or just don't drink the water because deodorant sucks. I mean, it really sucks. So you think of that. You need some clothes. You need some rain gear, and the biggest thing that I tell people, you've got to break in your boots well before your trips. And if you're coming to the Rockies, I'm going to challenge everybody. Put 100 miles on your boots. Just wear them to work. Wear them. Just get 100 miles. Get one of those Fitbits or whatever, and keep track of it. Because if you do that, you're going to save. You're going to save your hunt. Because I've seen guys. They had all the gear in the world. They had everything, just the greatest stuff, the best stuff, and their boats sucked, and they were done.
yeah, yeah. That's the top two things we talk about are boots and a pack. Those are the two things that you just cannot have fail you, because that's going to turn what could be a good experience into absolutely miserable one. And yeah, I'd say 100 miles is a good good number to throw at it to put in your boots. Definitely don't buy them in August and leave for your trip, September 1st. You're going to want to, get those in May or June and hike all summer with them and make sure they're broke in. We did a podcast on this on our podcast recently about that, just kind of what the best process is for that. And it's really, I think you need to get on uneven terrain as much as possible, because that's really where you're going to develop those hot spots, where your heel's going to rub or the side of your foot. Because if it's just flat ground, you're really not going to, get those effects. And then, yeah, on your pack, just, you need to make sure you've got one that's going to be tough enough and comfortable enough for you. And it's one of the reasons we developed EXO, is to find a pack that could kind of cross those borders of being very comfortable and at the same time very tough and able to handle heavy loads.
Yeah, and thanks for that. And I'm thinking, the best use of our time and get the best content out to the listeners. Let's talk about either elk or mule deer. What's your favorite hunt? And let's kind of set that up for the people by what you put in your pack, not everything, and then how you plan your pre-hunt planning to figure out where you're going, and then once you get in the hunt, what the rigors of the hunt are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's a tough one. Mule deer and elk are obviously here in Idaho the two tags that we just have over the counter for archery, guaranteed. We get to do that every year. So I was lucky enough to draw a mountain goat tag a few years ago, and that was awesome. But that was once in a lifetime. So those are my two species that I typically hunt. Tough call for me. I'd say it's 50-50, but if we want to pick one, we can talk about elk, because that's probably going to be the most popular. And so, yeah, as far as going on an elk hunt, if I dump my pack on the ground, again, we come from a very minimalist perspective. The very bottom of my pack is going to be my sleeping bag, and I use a quilt. So it's kind of a blanket version of a sleeping bag, so it's lighter weight. And then you're going to have your sleeping pad. You're going to have either your tent, or I personally use a bivy sack and a tarp shelter, which is, again, just saving weight and being as minimalist as possible. From there, I'm going to have a stove, right? So definitely need to heat water up for our dehydrated meals, and we always love to make, coffee in the morning.
And what kind of stove do you use?
Jet boil stove right now is what we use. We've had really good luck with those. They're very fuel efficient, and they boil water very fast and have some nice features that they have how the stove attaches to the pot. It makes it really good in wind, so you don't have to worry about a wind blowing and losing heat that way. So you're not burning unnecessary fuel. So
just a thing, that's what I use also. I spent 22 days in the mountains last fall, last August, sheep hunting, and it never quit on me.
Yeah, they're good solid stoves for sure. So, yeah, you basically got my pack, my sleeping bag, my sleeping pad, my tent. You have your poles and stakes with the tent, fuel for your stove. From there, you're looking at you're going to need a headlamp for lighting. I just have one headlamp, and I carry extra batteries for it. And then your water filter, that's a really important one. We use these ones called Sawyer squeeze pouches. They're super lightweight. You don't have to pump. You just basically fill up this bag full of dirty water, screw that into the back of the filter, and you can actually just gravity flow it, or like where you just hang that bag up in a tree and it'll flow through the filter if you have the time. Or you just squeeze the bag and it'll squeeze it into whatever container that you have. I personally just use a regular old water bladder, and some guys, will use Nalgene bottles or something like that. Then you're going to have, I'm pulled up my gear list here, so I'm looking at it. Next on the list is just a fork for eating my meals, and then a knife. Of course, you're going to want a knife for, not only cutting up animals, but other kind of camp duties. And so for those, we use the Outdoor Edge Razor Blaze, I believe it's called. So it's just a little replaceable blade knife, and they work really, really well. Have good luck with those. And then toilet paper and wipes. That's obviously an important one. And then first aid kit. I have a little custom one I built, just super lightweight, not a whole lot in there, just bandages, some, aspirin, just some tape and random things for blisters. I usually inside that first aid kit, I've got some spare parts, which are going to be loop material for my bowstring. The extra batteries would be in there, a few other little things like that. And then going on from there, it gets pretty simple. It's I got chapstick, which is always something I really need. Trekking poles, we 100% recommend using trekking poles. They're going to save your knees and make those 100-pound loads a lot more comfortable because you're just really taking a lot of pressure off your knees when you're going downhill. And then we always pack butt pads, and basically it's just a little half-inch thick piece of foam that we can sit on, and that because we do a lot of glassing, and that's something that's just inherent about hunting out west. It's just big open spaces, and you're just sitting quite a bit, glassing country. So highly recommend a butt pad. From there, man, it just gets into clothing, and we just keep everything simple. You just got pants and socks, long johns. One thing we do to keep weight down, and so maybe sounds crazy, or we don't pack anything extra, right? We don't pack. We have 2 pairs of socks, and that's pretty much it, on a 4 or 5 day hunt. And other than that, there's no extra pants, there's no extra jackets. It's just what you need. And so it's that's love to wear merino wool. First Light's one of my favorites, so we wear I have two of their lightest base layer, the medium layer, and then on top of that I just have a jacket, gloves and a beanie, pants and long johns, and that's pretty much it. So it's not a super long gear list as far as the gear, and then obviously you got your hunting stuff, which for me is going to be my bow, my rangefinder, wind detector. Make sure if I'm elk hunting, I always have my calls and my bugle with me. Game bags, so if we kill something, we've got those to put the meat into, to pack it out. Tripod, binoculars, some of the more obvious stuff there.
Now, do you bring super glue?
No, I don't. I know it's great for fixing cuts. I've just never brought it. I've used it before around the house, as far as if I cut myself, but is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Because it's just just dry everything off, get the blood away, and then squeeze it together and put the super glue. There's a chemical name for it, but anyway, just put it together and hold it, and all of a sudden you get a suture.
Yeah. I said I've never actually thrown that in the pack. It's a good idea. We have lots of tape, and I kind of, one thing I do is I'll wrap some heavy duty Gorilla tape around a few random things in my pack. Like if I've got a lighter, I'll wrap some around that. I'll wrap some around my trekking pole. So I definitely got plenty of duct tape to kind of patch things up if you were to get cut. But super glue is a great idea.
Yeah, and that's been and if you break something, I know one time I broke a rest, and we fixed it up best, and the super glue was the basis for the repair.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a great idea
during the hunt, and so that's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents worth of that. Let's talk about hunting elk, and so okay, we got the pack now. The drainages you're going to hunt, but if you were looking at a new area, where would you start? Pre-hunt.
Your first step, obviously, if you're back east, is you're going to jump on, Colorado Fish and Game and start doing your research on where you're going to hunt. And so that's, look at their harvest statistics and data that they've got. Look at is it over the counter tags? Is it a tag you have to put in for on a draw? And once you narrow that down, based off of, if it was my first trip, I'd look for a place with just high success ratio. And I don't know if they list number of elk estimated in the area, but I would definitely look for that. Also, I wouldn't be terribly afraid to look for a place that has a lot of hunters. And reason being, if there's a lot of hunters, there's probably a reason for it, and there's probably a lot of elk there. And just to get into elk, there's gonna be a learning curve in your first 2 hunts or 3 hunts. You're gonna be figuring things out. And then, if you want to kill a big bull, and maybe focus on that, later down 5 years down the road, once you get more experience with elk hunting.
Let's hold a second on that.
Yeah.
Because let's get reality, and what you just said is reality. And I tell people, that I meet in the Midwest, I go back there whitetail hunting every year, and you're sitting around having a beer or having your evening meal. People say, well, what's it like? And, can I see 10 bulls a day? Because it's seeing whitetails. I mean, you can go past some fields, and there's, pick a number, that number of whitetails out there feeding, and there's bucks around. And yeah, there's some places that you can go days without seeing them, but generally you're seeing game every single day. And elk hunting
Hmm.
isn't like that. First of all, you have to find them. And the reality is, and I tell people all the time, pick a place, do the best homework you can, pick a location, and hunt it for 3 years. And
Mm.
then after you hunt it for 3 years, you know where the elk are. One, if you get in there in the first year and absolutely nothing's there, and other people are seeing elk, and it's crowded, or the terrain's just too bad, just get out of there, find a different place, because there's plenty of places throughout the West that you can hunt without killing yourself. It's just a different type of hunt. You get in the aspen, you're not in the dark timber, blah blah blah, all those things. But you gotta invest the time. And Matt Gray came out and he did his homework and he found a place, and he wasn't that far from a trailhead, and he basically slept a couple hundred yards from the elk. Got up in the morning, the elk bull walked within 30 yards of him, and he shot him. That doesn't happen all the time. It
No.
does not happen all the time. And I know he was on your show, so you know the whole story. But
Yeah.
and go ahead and listen to Matt Gray. I don't know what episode, but this Google Matt Gray Whitetail Rendezvous. What's your podcast name?
The Hunt Backcountry podcast.
Yeah, and I think he was number 65.
Okay.
On yours, but
On
just
ours, yeah.
just check that out, because Matt did everything right, and he went where the people weren't and figured it out, and he did it. That's a rarity, and that's my 2 cents on that. You got to invest the time to find out where the elk live, and then every year it gets easier and easier and easier. Your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the average harvest rate's something around 20% or something like that for a resident living here in Idaho, and they're gonna have a way better chance of getting into elk than you are on your first trip out. So I would set the expectations as coming out here, having a good time, learning the country, and then if you get lucky, you'll kill one. But I would not be disappointed because there's probably a 80% chance plus that you're not going to kill an elk on your first trip out. Just too much to learn. I just kind of want to hit it out earlier. If you want to do a backpacking trip, definitely fight the backpacking bullet off back home and figure out how to do that first. I wouldn't be trying to do both at the same time. But and then learning elk country is critical. We have some of our spots that we've hunted for years that we know the patterns, where the elk are, where they bed, where they feed. And when you go into an area blind, you don't know any of that, and you're really just hunting by just getting lucky if they're not talking. If they're talking, then that's a lot of fun, and bulls are bugling, and that makes your job a lot easier. But when they're quiet and the hunting's tough, you need to know their patterns and where to be and the time to be there. So, and that's just nothing you can do about that, but hunting the country and getting to know it.
And if somebody wants to get a hold of you after the show, what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
For me, just email info@xomountaingear.com comes right to me. Steve at snsarchery.com comes to me as well. Either one of those work great. And yeah, I'm definitely kind of, even though I have a couple pretty cool jobs in the outdoor industry, I spend way too much time in front of a computer. So if you want to email me, I can get back to you pretty quick typically.
How about social media?
Yeah, I mean, we've got our Instagram page is Hunt Backcountry, and we just share kind of a lot of our EXO customers' photos and stuff on that. And whenever we do podcast updates or product releases, those get posted there. And then Facebook is EXO Mountain Gear and SNS Archery. And then personally, I don't get on Facebook and Instagram a whole lot. But my Instagram account that I may post once a month.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draws are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to gohunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. All in all, if you're hunting out west in 2018, GoHunt.com Insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com.
Is steve.j.speck.
And thanks for that. And folks, the website for Exo Mountain Gear is?
exomountaingear.com.
And so take a look at that because you get a lot of choices. And we talked about it before. I'm just going to underscore it. Your boots and then your pack are either going to make or break the trip. And let's spend a couple more minutes on that, and let's underscore that because, you're going to invest a lot of money in boots because what's a good pair of boots going to run them?
Personally, I use it's kind of a hiking shoe from Salomon called the X Ultra, and those are only $140. You're only going to get one, or I'm only going to get one season out of them if I'm lucky. Usually go through kind of 2 pairs over an entire year, but they're cheap relative to a high-end boot, which those can run you $300, $400, $500. But those are the type of shoe that I like to run. They're a little bit more mobile and quiet. And it's just I'm kind of the oddball out there, though. Most typical Western hunters are wearing more of a your traditional hunting boot, and you're definitely going to spend some money on that. Again, it's a tough process, but you just got to find out what works for you. And frankly, if you do some research online or go on a forum or Facebook and ask what's your favorite hunting boot, you're going to get 100 different answers from 100 different people. And that's all. We all have different feet and shapes and preferences. And like I said, for me, I don't like a really stiff-soled boot. It's very uncomfortable for me. And I like more of a shoe feeling. And the next guy is going to hate that. So you can take people's recommendations, and it's a good place to start. But definitely, I wouldn't just go like, well, 5 people told me to order that boot. I'm going to get that and call it good and go on my hunt because that could kill you. So, and I said, like we said, if your feet are killing and blistered, it just makes things impossible on a backcountry hunt.
Yeah, your hunt's over.
Yeah, it really is.
And one thing now, in the early September, before quote unquote before the snow flies, which isn't true. So I've learned I need Gore-Tex. I want Gore-Tex on my feet because even in the early morning when there's dew and you're going through the high grass and stuff, if I don't have the Gore-Tex on, my what I can't think of my lightweight cross trainers. Merrell. My row.
Oh, okay.
They're toast. I mean, my feet are soaked. I might as well not even have socks on. So how do you combat that, or you just don't even worry about it?
So I do wear Gore-Tex. The Solomons are a Gore-Tex liner. I've had an interesting experience though, and that when I first started hunting, I was wearing bigger, heavier boots, and my feet would be cold all the time. And I just thought like, well, man, I need a thicker wool sock. I need a more insulated boot. And I kept like adding thicker socks or going from a 400 gram boot to an 800 gram boot to a 1200 gram boot. And my feet just kept they seemed to be getting worse. And what I ended up finding out was my feet sweat a lot. And so there was, I kept adding this more warmth to it, and I was just causing more sweat. And so whenever I'd hike and then stop, my feet would be soaking wet and they'd get cold, instantly. And so I definitely like a thinner sock and a more breathable boot. That's another reason I like those Solomons is it's a synthetic fabric that breathes exceptionally well. And so my feet stay dry and comfortable. There are a lot of, in the backpacking world, a lot of different opinions on Gore-Tex or not. We did a podcast with this guy named Andrew Skirka, who is solo backpacked the entire length of Alaska by himself. Crazy backpacker. And he swears up and down to not have a breathable shoe with no liner. And his thought process is once you get wet, once Gore-Tex gets saturated, it's saturated and it will not dry out. It takes a long time for that to dry out, where a breathable shoe or boot without a Gore-Tex will dry out a lot quicker. And so you're kind of better off in that scenario. But I would say in general for September, October hunting, a good Gore-Tex lining's probably the way to go.
Yeah, and the other thing I found out a long time ago, two layers of socks. And I just wear Polypro. There's a gazillion different socks where I always wear knee highs, even if I'm hunting in shorts. That's what I do, and then I just layer that up with the coldness on my wool socks, and I'm a big believer, in wool because you can get it soaking wet and it's still warm.
Yeah. Yeah. Hands down, wool is your friend. I mean, I wear it. My long johns, my base layers, my socks, my gloves, my beanie. I wear wool everywhere I can. Obviously, you don't want a wool jacket as your only option because it's not going to be waterproof or water resistant. But everywhere else, I'm pretty much wearing wool.
So we're giving you a lot of tips. I hope everybody's taking some notes. So, okay, we're at camp. We're set up. We got a shelter, and the fall. It's just an awesome time to be in the Rockies because it could be 50, 60 degrees or warmer during the day, and then it just nosedives as soon as that sun goes down. And and then if you're in the right place, you can hear elk bugling. I mean, you go to sleep and you just say, "Shut up," I want to get to sleep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So you're in the campsite, and you hear the elk bugling, and you're going to hunt them the next day. Let's talk about what time you get up, and let's talk about a day on the elk mountain.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Just funny your story. We've definitely had on more than one occasion. We literally the elk are within 200 yards of the tent bugling all night, and it's cool until about midnight, and then you're just like, okay, shut up. Start bugling again at 6:30 when the sun comes up. So, yeah, we personally we hunt by packing up camp every day. We started doing that quite a few years ago, and once you get to that point, it's by far the most efficient way that you can hunt because you hunt with no boundaries or restrictions. About the only thing you have is, with elk hunting, we like to stay 5-6 miles from your truck because that's even with two guys, that's still going to be, a crazy long day or really 2 days of getting that meat out of the backcountry. But you don't have a base camp that you have to return to every night, and so you're not wasting energy and time hiking back to that point. So for us, we're going to get up an hour before the shooting light. We're going to make some sort of breakfast. We really keep it pretty simple. Usually it's like some type of protein bar, make some coffee, tear down camp, load it in our packs. And then from there, we've probably been talking all night long about what direction we want to go that morning. You always want to hunt with the thermals in mind. So obviously in the morning, they're going to be coming down. So you're going to want to hunt side hill or hunt up. That way, the wind's not blowing to the elk. And so we've got that direction in mind that we want to go, and we'll head there. If it's completely blind and we're relying on calling, then we maybe have the mindset of, okay, let's get to a certain vantage point where, we can send the bugle out across a canyon and hopefully hear something back, and that's going to tell us where to go. But if, like I said, if you're in country that then you're like, well, if they're not talking, we know there's some feeding areas over here, and we're just going to start working that way. So a lot of this, I guess, from here, the strategy would depend on the time of year. And are the elk talking? Is it early September, and they're just starting to maybe rut a little bit, and you're going to be relying more on, cow calling and setups versus, chasing bugles. So we'll just say it's September 20th, and the bulls are ripping off. It really is from there. Said we're going to get somewhere that we feel good, and if we hear a bull bugle, then we're going to try to assess what's going on with that bull. Is he bugling every time we call and responsive? Does he seem hot? Are the bugles changing locations? Is he getting further away? Is he getting closer? And you try to make these decisions fairly quick because it's going to tell you what you need to do as far as, are we going to go chase after that bull? Are we going to try to, do a circle hook and get around in front of them and hope to catch them? Because maybe their bedding grounds are away from you, and you're really not going to know that, especially if it's a new area to you. Excuse me. And so, maybe bull bugles in general, especially if I'm in a new area, I'm probably just going to go make sure I got the wind good and go straight at them. If I don't got the wind good, then I'll need to kind of circle and come in from the side. And we're just going to get as close as we feel comfortable doing without spooking the elk. And that's you're going to screw this up multiple ways. You're going to be way too far away and play it safe. And there's kind of a sweet spot with bulls sometimes. if you're bugling and trying to sound like a challenging bull, they may just, it's not like every hunting video you see. They're not going to come screaming in and want to fight you every single time. They may just, he may be content with his 6 cows and be like, well, there's a bull bugling over here. I'm going to take my cows and push them away. That probably happens way more often than them coming running in and challenge you. So the trick is to get close enough to the point where he doesn't feel like he can run away, that he has no choice but to come and challenge you. Um, so yeah, it's trying to play that game of get in close, and we try to do it quietly so that it's kind of like a surprise of all of a sudden, oh crap, here that bull that was just half a mile away is all of a sudden at my back door, and that's going to be your best chance to get that bull coming in after you. And from there, so we got in. Hopefully, you're hunting with a partner. Your best bet's going to be to set up. So have the shooter get in front, 50 yards, something like that. We try to keep it so the caller can see the shooter and there can be communication going back and forth. Because if not, you're just kind of blind and it gets pretty tough, especially if you're new at it. You're just going to be like, something's going to be happening to the caller or to the shooter, and you're not going to be able to tell each other what's going on. But we would set up, when you're the shooter and you're setting up, you need to be conscious of a lot of things, conscious of where you think the elk are, conscious of the wind, conscious of your shooting lanes, conscious of what's behind you, your backdrop, or try to place yourself in an area where, you're going to have a lot of shooting lanes, but you are going to have some cover so you can easily draw your bow. And that's frankly something I'm still working on. Every time I set up, I'm kind of like maybe second guessing or doubting, like, am I in the right spot here? But I really just try to focus on making sure I've got shooting lanes and making sure that I can draw my bow, without being caught. So don't be standing right out in the middle of something. Be up against a tree or some brush. So, and then hopefully you call them in, But from there, that again, that doesn't happen very consistently, and they're gonna take off, and then you adjust your strategy, and you're gonna try to get in front of them or catch back up to them, and it's I've definitely not mastered the elk calling. We kill elk every year, but we do it more out of persistence, I would say, and stubbornness than necessarily being great elk callers.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed, elk, do a lot of circling. They'll know where you are, and they'll play the wind, and they'll quarter, and they'll come from your left to your right. And if you have eyes on the caller, he can see that elk sometimes before you do, because he comes in the backside and he's working towards the caller, and then he'll be coming up that way, and the shooter's looking the wrong way, and the elk's passing on the left side. You're looking down right because that's where the last time you heard him. Then all of a sudden, he's coming up on the other side.
For sure, yeah. You'll run into that early season when they're taking their time coming in, and you'll run into that. If you're got a herd bull bugle in front of you, you're gonna have some satellites that may be kind of circling around, and they may sneak in quietly behind you, and bam, all of a sudden you got a bull right there. So definitely, I mean, you just got to be very aware of what's going on, and it's easy to get focused on that one bull bugling right in front of you, but you need to be paying attention to your surroundings, because a lot of times an opportunity is going to be standing right there at 20 yards looking at you, and then bark and scare the whole herd off, and then you're SOL.
And just a short story. What I was thinking of coming in left or right or behind you, I was calling by myself. It was perfect, and an afternoon snowstorm hit, and so it was just in and out. It was like a thunderstorm, but it was snow. So there was snow on the ground. So I got all set up, and I sort of kind of knew where the elk should be, and I heard a bugle, blah blah blah, and so I go to work, and then I just nothing happened, and I know there's elk around and everything, and darkness came, and I started walking out, and there were tracks. They weren't 20 yards behind me, and that sucker came right up behind me and just stood. He didn't bark. He didn't do anything. I could see how he came in, and he circled in, and he stood literally 20 yards behind me, and he didn't say anything because I'm looking, left, right, up front. The sucker I saw his tracks, and he didn't even scrape. He just turned around and walked away. I'll never forget that, though, because it said, oh man, that's why team hunting, and when you're calling, I think that's your best option. If you don't have that, then you don't, but really try to get some somebody to go with you. And the other thing about that is safety. I know there's a lot of DIY hunters. I hunted for many, many years, just all by myself. And people knew where I was, and I'd leave on my truck or my Jeep. I'd leave, hey, this is where I'm going. I'm going in this space. And if I'm not out by, dark, that either means I've got an elk and I'm taking care of him and I'll be out later. If I'm not back at my truck at, by the next morning, I'm in trouble.
Right. Yeah. One thing I would say, just on that safety thing is plugging a product a little bit, but the Garmin, it used to be DeLorme and Reach, they're satellite communication devices. Man, it's worth every single penny. I added one to my pack a few years ago, and I went to Alaska because we had to have them. And I would highly, highly, highly recommend one of those because you can be out in the middle of nowhere, texting your wife that everything's okay. Those devices have SOS buttons on them that, if you really get in trouble, you can push that, and search and rescue is going to come find you pretty quickly. Peace of mind, and they're $300 and to $400 product, and you have like a $15 monthly subscription. But man, it's one of my favorite pieces of gear in my pack.
Is that something like Spot?
Yes. So Spot is very similar. The difference between Spot and the InReach is the communication that you can do. So you can literally at Bluetooth to my cell phone, and I can be on my cell phone texting like I'm in town with my wife. So you can communicate back and forth and let your friends and family members know what's going on.
So I'll just underscore that because 5 miles from the trailhead is, you don't know how much, terrain, you don't know how much trouble, you don't know how much to get out if something happens, broken arm, broken leg, twisted ankle, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And so that extra security blanket, if you want, that extra technology can make the difference of you living and going home or dying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said I solo backpacked hunted for years without it. Didn't really want to bring technology with me back there because a lot of being remote and back there alone is just being alone. But once I got one, and just the peace of mind for my wife, for myself, it's worth every single penny.
So take that to heart. We've covered 10 articles of different things. As you heard Steve say before, they spent, one article just on one of his podcasts just on boots. And so, I'm giving an overview, but listeners, it's a different game out here, and it's a wonderful game because if you sit up in the dawn breaking, you're overlooking a basin, there's a herd of elk, and he's bugling, and the frost and the moisture's coming out of his nostrils and stuff. I mean, those are pictures you'll take to your grave. I mean, there's you can't. There's nothing. If you're an elk hunter out in the West and see that picture, I just shut my eyes and I'm right there. And as Steve is, and it's magnificent. But it's going to take the best you to figure out how to do it, and then you have to be mentally tough. And let's spend a little time on that. And we get a few more minutes in the show. Let's talk about the mental preparation for being DIY in the mountains.
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned it earlier, where you got to get okay with being uncomfortable. And just it becomes your new norm, right? You're going to be a little bit cold. You're going to be a little bit wet. You're going to be tired. But you just got to get past all that and realize that, you're not going to die. It's just uncomfortable. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be wishing you had a big juicy hamburger and fries and a milkshake in front of you. But you got to tough it out past those points when you're doubting yourself, because the experience is so worth it. And I don't know. I think, that's something that just comes with time and experience doing it. Obviously, some people are just more mentally tough than others. I think one challenge a lot of guys will have, I personally have, is loneliness back there. If you're by yourself and you start thinking about your wife and kids back at home, that's where that inReach comes in play, because you can at least communicate back and forth and kind of have some dialogue going. And so that's definitely an obstacle to get over. But you just got to be living and be present in the moment when you're back there, and not get in your head, because it's going to be tough and it's going to be uncomfortable. But again, at the end of the day, I don't care how bad your experience is. Matt Gray's podcast, or the podcast we did with him, where he tells the whole story, is a perfect example, because even no matter how miserable it is, I just about guarantee everyone, by the time they get back to the truck, they're going to be already dreaming and planning their next trip back out there. And that's just how it is. That's the bug that caught me with backpacking a long time ago. Was it was just, I just find myself thinking about it constantly. You're telling the painting a picture there of, up in a basin and elks bugling and frost coming off the grass in the morning, and the hair stands up on the back of my neck, because you just dream about being there every single day.
Yeah, it's what is it, May 3rd? Permits coming in. I put in for limited licenses because elk hunting in Colorado is better in limited areas. You got to draw into some places that you're going to get once in a lifetime. I was able to hunt a unit that today takes 22 points. That's 22 years, to get drawn in there.
Wow.
And, it used to be, when I started, I could get one every 2 or 3 years. And, but I think about that. But last night I was thinking, I know where there's a bull moose. I put in for a bull moose tag, and I'm right back in this old miner shack, and I got my glass up, and I'm just watching him. I watched him when I was sheep hunting, and because I couldn't find the sheep, so I watched him for a whole afternoon, and I'm just going, oh, because he's Pope and Young. He's a Pope and Young, bull.
Uh-huh.
No question about it. But, you just think about that, and you put yourself in those places, and whether you're at work, you're driving stuff, because once you put that in your memory bank, you own it forever. And I can, just agree with Steve that, when I come out of the mountains, and after 22 days last August, I get home and I kissed my wife and said hello. And I said, I want to go back. She said, what? And that did not sell well, folks. That was, don't do that. But I was truthful. Because it's just, 22 days, above 10,000 feet, and on your own, and you're just seeing things that some people will never, ever see in their life,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Been able to experience amazing things and see some amazing places that, a vast majority of people will never get to do.
It's crazy. And so, Steve, I could go on for hours, but I think, we got to call it right here. And I think we covered a tremendous amount. So I want to thank you. So you got a few minutes to give some shout outs, and then we're going to wrap the show.
Okay, sure. So what do you want from me here?
Shout outs to, your partner, other people, people on your podcast, plug your podcast. You've already, said some of the gear you use. So, whatever you want to do for shout outs, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, to get a hold of us, it's exomountaingear.com. And as I said, our Instagram page is that Hunt Backcountry. I also, snsarchery.com. That's spelled out SANDS, SANDS, archery.com. That's a business I started 8 years ago in my garage. And we sell a lot of that equipment that we talked about here, the Garmin inReaches and the Sawyer water filters, and we sell tents and a lot of archery sights and quivers and stabilizers and all that stuff on that website. And it's a great resource for backpack hunting. Also, if you're interested in more of these topics, like I said, like we've talked about our podcast, the Hunt Backcountry podcast, we really dive into, there's going to be an entire episode on boots and packs and strategies for hunting mule deer and elk. And we've had some great guests on there where you can learn a lot of information. So definitely encourage you to check out some of those resources. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to help out where I can.
Steve Speck, thank you so much for just sharing some insights and taking me to some of the basins that I've hung out, and, just being there. And folks, I hope you have a chance to try to get to sleep at midnight and there's elk just screaming around you and you're going, stop. and you can't hunt them, but they're right there. And that's everything that you ever could want, is to hear that that bugle. It's just a remarkable thing. And so, on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, Steve, thank you so. Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Hey, thanks so much for visiting Buckwild Coffee. The best brew in the West, the best brew around the campfire, the best brew in the hunting shack, the best brew anywhere. Buckwild Coffee. Get yours today. So much for being a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on.
Folks, you're not going to want to miss the next show because I'm pleased to have and proud to have Ralph and Vicky Sincerio Rollo. They have been on the Pursuit Channel, Outdoor Channel, for over 16 years with Archer's Choice and The Choice. They're a couple that loves to hunt. And throughout the show, I heard the tagline coming through, real people in real places. And that's what they try to do, show you just what it takes to get outside and make videos that relate to everybody. It's not always the kill. It's not always tagging the animal out. It's the adventure. Ralph and Vicky sure bring that in spades. Can't wait to hear the show.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.